You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com, ODOO.com.
Hey, it's Bobby Bones with some exciting news. Open booking is here for the Top Shelf Country Cruise, setting sail February 2026 aboard the luxurious Celebrity Reflection. Spots are filling up fast, so book your stateroom today or sign up to become a lineup insider to receive the final lineup 48 hours prior to the public. Don't miss your chance to make February 2026 unforgettable. Visit TopShelfCountryCruise.com. That's TopShelfCountryCruise.com.
But the NES got around the problem with the NES 10 lockout chip.
Okay. And the NES was
Is the off-white one?
I feel like a lot of them were off-white. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, right. No, so it had gray and black on it.
Yeah, still no.
Oh my God, it's an engine. Where's my rifle at?
Andrew, for the last time, we have no rifles.
Yeah, you said like a Jew.
Damn, Andrew, what did I say about that?
Said like a Jewish.
You know what? Never mind. Hi, Tom. Hi, Noah.
Hey, Eli. Who is that? Who the hell is that?
Right, so you know how this week's episode is our President's Day special?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I call my clone guy, and I figure, hey, why don't I do something special?
Excuse me, Jew person.
Hi, Howard, and it's Eli.
Hello.
I told you like 3 times.
Do you have any more of those divine exotic truffles?
Called Gushers, Howard, and they're in the pantry.
I'm afraid I've already eaten those in the pantry.
Then no, Howard, we do not have any more if you've eaten the ones in the pantry.
Tragedy.
Okay. So anyways, I start bringing presidents back, right? And wouldn't you know it?
They're all a bunch of racists?
Yeah, like all of them.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
No, but like even the pretty recent ones were all racist.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But hey, no, this guy you gotta meet. Hey, Calvin, come over here.
Eli, Calvin Coolidge.
No, trust me. You're gonna love this dude. This dude is awesome. Calvin, this is Noah and Tom.
What up?
There it is.
Yep. That's a lot.
Not you two, Calvin. Not you two.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read an article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Noah Lucians, and I'm going to be presiding over this week's episode, but to do it right, I'm going to need to assemble my cabinet. First up, the guy who wanted to be Secretary of the Interior because the outside has bugs in it, and the guy who wanted to be the Secretary of the Exterior because the inside has Eli in it, Eli and Cecil.
Yeah, they stopped describing you as an inside kid when you hit 30. It's a bummer.
I want to transfer and take care of former president's dogs. Secretary of the Ex-Terrier. I think that would be way better.
That's good.
Early.
All right, also joining us tonight, 2 guys who fought over getting to be Secretary of Health and Human Services until I told them that didn't mean they get serviced, Tom and Heath.
Okay. Well, it doesn't not mean that if you tip well enough.
That's true.
My title in college was Secretary of Human Self-Services, so
It's pretty close.
fits.
All right, and so before we get the show underway, I wanted to remind everybody listening that if it hadn't been for the fundraising efforts of the people on this podcast, the Republicans would have won the Georgia Senate runoff and Mitch McConnell would still be the majority leader if it wasn't for us. And if you'd like to thank us for saving America, stick around to the end of the show and learn how to give us money. And with that out of the way, tell us, Tom, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today we will be telling stories about U.S. presidents. Mostly some really fucked up stories about U.S. presidents.
That's our favorite kind of story. So, Tom, you're not bound by things like the format of the show. So my normal question about reading an article on Wikipedia doesn't make sense here. So are you ready to do the thing that you're about to do?
Well, in honor of President's Day, Noah, these are the stories I think we have to tell.
All right. So, who, what, when, where, or why was
All right, so the U.S. presidency is an honored position, and obviously it's one we take seriously, and I would never mock this venerable institution. But here we are, just a month after U.S. democracy survived its flirtation with fascism by the skin of its fucking teeth, and this show is releasing just a couple of days after, of all ironic things, President's Day. So if you're like me, you might want to take this opportunity as a reminder that no matter how much power any of these men have been granted, each and every one of them is just another fallible, fault-filled human like the rest of us. And like all of us, they are each of them temporary in every sense of the word.
Oh, really? Every sense of the word? Because according to definition 1D of the OED, temporary can mean designating one who is commissioned for the duration of a war, and not all presidents are that, Tom.
Okay. Do you actually disagree with Tom's definition of temporary? Or is it that you're mad because he wouldn't read your Roblox fan fiction?
Artists are supposed to support each other.
It was 200 pages. No one's reading it.
My heart was in those pages.
So our first story is, appropriately, about our first president, George Washington, or this will be more appropriately about George Washington's death. On December the 12th, 1799, Washington was on his farm doing post-presidential supervisory farm stuff. And when he came back inside, it's not real clear what he was doing out there. He didn't follow his mom's advice and went straight to dinner without changing out of his wet clothes. At least that's how one article phrased it. A much better article notes that the day that Washington was out was cold and windy, and it alternated between rain and snow, and his farm chores took longer than he anticipated as a result. And because he was late, Washington's dinner guests were waiting, so rather than change out of his soaking wet, freezing cold clothes, George just sat down and tucked into dinner.
He was almost certainly at this point the richest man in America. How the fuck did he have wet chores?
And I know that being cold doesn't cause a cold, but it can impact your immune system, making you more susceptible to illness. And sitting in your work clothes at dinner, just soaking wet, that's super weird.
Right.
And it also turned out to be a very bad decision. The next morning, he woke up with a sore throat. No big deal, unless it happens to be 1799, in which case everything was a big deal.
Wow, dinner's really amazing, George, and the aromas were really complimented by that cow shit smell you brought in from the field. It was
Right?
really great.
Undeterred, Washington headed out the next day for his chores around the property. Shame, I guess, he didn't have any helpers around the place.
This episode brought to you by the 1776 Commission.
Anyway, the sore throat proceeded on to chest congestion, and the next morning he was having some trouble breathing. It was at this point that Washington made his second big mistake. He called for Dr. James Clark, Washington's personal physician for the last 40 years. Now, remember that in 1799, the great medical minds of the age were of the learned opinion that people became ill because their blood had the wrong magic inside of it. So, pretty much no matter how sick Washington might have been, calling the doctor was not going to help. And it didn't. While Washington waited for his personal physician to arrive, other local physicians attended to him. And by attending to him, what I mean is that they bled him. A lot. I actually tried to find some information about how much blood was removed when doctors engaged in bloodletting, but unsurprisingly, there doesn't seem to be any real consistency.
Well, the consistency changes as it clots.
And I guess on my part, I kind of always assumed that bloodletting wasn't really like a volume problem. But I was very much wrong because some of the articles I looked at said that it was not unusual for patients to lose as much as 20 ounces of blood in a single sitting.
As much, they're just like, I don't know, we're taking some fucking blood.
So this was not like a symbolic gesture, right? Washington was bled several times and by several doctors. It was pretty much the first thing each of them tried as soon as they walked in the room.
He's squinting and he's looking at the back of his prescription razor. Did I bleed myself at 11 or was it 1? I can't remember.
Did I eat any wet food with it? I forget.
So the doctors had tried removing his blood to no avail, so naturally they needed to move on to his ass, and they gave him an edible.
Nice.
Feels like that was definitely his idea. He was like, all right, leeches didn't work. It's got to be a butthole, right? It's got to be the butthole. Enema time.
And despite the enema, George Washington still had that severe sore throat.
Yeah, I mean, how deep was that enema?
Right? So the doctors then forced him to drink a potion that they made of molasses, vinegar, and butter, which nearly choked Washington to death. Moving on now to the outside of his throat, they next applied a blistering poultice to him, causing sores and swelling and terrible pain. Washington, now low on blood, dehydrated from his medically induced diarrhea, and covered in painful blisters, did not improve. And in an effort to avoid further medical treatment, he died from the ministrations of his doctors, who, it must be noted, did not cure his sore throat on December 14th, 1799.
Okay, but the doctors learned a valuable lesson. You never go ass to mouth. That's it. And we've known ever since.
And as bad as the death of Washington was, it was swift and merciful compared to the fate of President James Garfield. This story is so terrible. On July the 2nd, 1881, James Garfield started off having a great day. He had a fine breakfast at home, singing popular songs of the day with his sons before heading off to the train station.
Here are the races we don't trust. Here are the races we don't trust. Everybody.
What's that next verse? I forgot the next verse.
I wrote a whole song. I bet they edited it out. I bet you only got to hear the first line.
What did they think about Irish people? Do you have a verse for that? There it is.
Eli's dancing with his arms straight down to the ground. He's just,
Bottle dance. Heath is snatching at the bottle the whole time.
So it was at this point that his day took a turn for the worse. At the train platform, he was shot twice by Charles Guiteau, a mentally deranged lawyer, a phrase I copied directly just to note its obvious redundancy. The first bullet just grazed Garfield's arm, but the second bullet struck his lumbar spine before ending its flight in Garfield's abdomen.
This story is way more fucked up if you think about it like as the lasagna cat instead of an old white guy.
That's way more fucked up.
Now, obviously, getting shot must be very terrible, but getting shot in such a way that your spine is damaged while also getting gut shot must be even more horrible. And Garfield was, by all accounts, in terrible pain, but he was also just as clearly surprised, crying out, and I kind of love this, "My God, what is this?" as he lay there helpless, just shocked by the whole thing.
I mean, it's a gun. You don't you got shot, man. Weird question. You're stupid.
So things at this point were bad indeed, but once they summoned the doctors, as you might imagine, things did not improve. Now, the first guy was a doctor named, and I'm not making this up, Dr. Bliss. I didn't make a mistake. This guy's first name, his first name was Doctor. So
Major.
Yeah, exactly. His walking around name was Dr. Bliss. Then, by occupation, he became a doctor so that he was now called Dr. Bliss. So if this does not seem like an omen of good things to come, you would be right.
for symmetry, his middle name was Bliss. So he's Dr. Bliss. Really?
Okay, you guys laugh, but with a name like that, he couldn't have exactly pursued his passion for dance, could he? Right?
Right, yeah.
In the 1800s, when people were shot, the highest priority of the medical professionals was to remove the bullet. Now, I'm not suggesting we should just leave bullets in people all willy-nilly, but, I mean, once the bullet's done moving, it's just an inert hunk of metal. Doctors in the 1800s, however, thought that the bullet, if left in the body, would cause, quote, morbid poisoning. And so they endeavored tirelessly to remove the offending bullet from their beloved president, lest he succumb to this terrible malady. Of course, their method for finding and removing bullets left rather something to be desired, because it was at this point that a battery of doctors all began sticking their dirty, unwashed fingers into Garfield, clumsily finger-banging his wound like inept teenagers, unable to find the magic bullet. And they also did not use ether, even though it was available and in use at the time. because they were in such a rush to try to find and remove the bullet.
Guys, you gotta just cut it out. I'm pretty sure he shot me in the butthole too. You're not focusing on that. I guess you gotta do the enema, right?
So as an aside, the same principle of find the bullet and the damage it did will maybe magically disappear, that was also applied when Lincoln was shot. The first medical ministrations to Lincoln involved running up to him and, in the spirit of assistance, sticking their dirty fingers into basically the open brain of the president and then rooting around to see if they could pull out the bullet. In the case of Lincoln, I'm not suggesting that it necessarily did much harm at this point. But I can definitely say that it could not have done much good either.
I already got my finger in this part of his head. You stick yours in that bit over there.
I didn't find the bullet, but I did find this first draft of the Emancipation Proclamation.
So in the case of Garfield, no matter how many different crusty fingernailed doctors swung by to poke and prod in the wound of the commander-in-chief, the bullet remained elusive. Though, if I'm being honest, I kind of hope one guy found it right away and kept it for his souvenir and just got, too embarrassed to admit when he saw how excited everyone else was. No one wants to ruin the party.
Yeah,
I just think that would have been great.
Everybody's fingering the president. Nobody wants to stop. Yeah.
At this point, they had the bright idea to call Alexander Graham Bell to come by with his newly invented metal detector to see if he could help.
Hi, is this one? Yeah, this is two. You know what? This works out great. We actually need another one of your inventions, and we're like the only two people with a phone. This is cool.
Well, Graham couldn't help, so naturally, more doctors stuck their hands in the president and rummaged about his guts. If they weren't charging at this point at least something for admission, this was a missed opportunity.
Jones, try to reach a hand through his ass and see if we could shake him.
Wait. So Alexander Graham Bell had something more important going on that day?
He was a beachcomber just out,
Yeah.
bottle cap.
Oh, is this one? He screens the call from the White House.
So if you're thinking to yourself at this point, my God, how much longer could this go on? The answer is 80 days. For 80 days, Garfield lived, gut shot and suffering, while a clown car of inept physicians paraded about, fiddling him in the belly. Since the original wound was only 3 inches and clearly could not accommodate enough doctor fisting, they expanded his wound so that it became 20 inches long, stretching from his ribs to his groin. The wound began, predictably, to fester and became a foul-smelling, pus-filled, rotten flesh chasm. Garfield wasted away over the course of those 80 days from a hale and hearty 210-pound man to a 130-pound weeping pile of agony.
Shit.
On September the 8th, he was shot in July. On September the 8th,
God.
Garfield was moved by a special train, which was arranged to move the dying president from Washington to his seaside cottage in New Jersey.
He was stinking up the White House. They had to get him out of there. Jesus.
I'm finally back in my cottage. Now I feel better. This is great.
Get this smell somewhere where no one will notice it. New Jersey. So this is where he lingered another 10 miserable days before clutching his chest and no shit crying out, this pain, before finally, mercifully succumbing to sepsis. The esteemed Dr. Bliss placed his ear against the president's chest and, not detecting a heartbeat but also not using his stethoscope, stood and said, "It is over." And I have to say that if I was Garfield at this point, even if I were not dead, I sure as fuck wouldn't be the one to correct that guy.
Someone reach into Garfield and pull out his heart and see if it's still beating.
And just to be thorough, yes, butthole still beating. I checked.
Yo, it would be another 86 years before we thought of the 25th Amendment.
Yeah. A lot of executive orders were, that year. It was weird.
So a few more presidents. In 1841, William Henry Harrison was just super duper excited about his first day. He was so excited, in fact, that he gave just an extremely long inauguration speech, despite the day having bitterly cold temperatures. And he wanted to look sharp while he did it, so naturally he avoided wearing a coat. And he promptly caught a cold, which developed swiftly into pneumonia, and he died just 1 month into his term.
All right, who's out here drinking tonight? And who's coughing into a lace handkerchief? This guy gets it. Classic. Yeah. All right, section 1.
President Zachary Taylor's death was just odd. On Independence Day in 1850, Taylor was proudly attending the dedication of the Washington Monument. He dressed himself in his finest suit, sweltering in the swampy July heat, and he decided to cool off the only way he knew how. By drinking an enormous amount of ice-cold milk and eating an exorbitant amount of cherries.
Duh.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's how you do
standard
it.
cool
Yeah.
down foods.
Yep.
Somehow, and it depends on what you read, this killed him. Some sources blame his death on overheating and gastroenteritis from the cherries, and others blame the bacteria in all that unpasteurized milk. Though to them, I say, why not both?
It's like he decided to haze himself into a fraternity. What the fuck?
All right, so apparently when Tom said stories about, he meant morbid deaths of, and while I was a big fan of morbid presidential deaths until very recently, I feel like some people might need a minute to readjust, so we're going to take a quick break for a little apropos of nothing. Oh my God, the president's been shot!
Someone call a doctor.
I'm a doctor.
This man's been shot!
Step aside, step aside. I need to remove his blood as soon as possible.
Really?
Please, no, don't do that.
Yes,
No.
yes, get me a bucket and a razor. Stat.
Well, no, it seems like he's already losing quite a bit of blood.
Not nearly enough. If we don't act soon, he'll have so much blood in him it will kill him.
He'll have too much blood from getting shot?
Who's the doctor here, goddammit?
You?
Ow, worse. That feels way worse. Way
Damn it.
worse.
He's still not bleeding fast enough.
He's not bleeding fast enough from getting shot.
Damn it, man, you've just given me an idea. Brilliant. Let's hope it's just crazy enough to work.
No, he's super dead now.
Curse you, blood! You've done it again!
Okay.
And we're back. All right, Tom, by my count, we've had 45 and a half presidents as a nation. Only 5 and a half of them are still alive by my count. That means we've got 35 more wacky obituaries for you to choose from. Where are we going next?
All right, well, as much fun as it is to think about the deaths of our beloved historical figures, I thought I would end our President's Day special with some perspective on a more recent president, Lyndon Johnson. The stories around the unbelievable hubris and scarily abusive behavior of Johnson are so incredible they kind of beg disbelief. One common theme about Lyndon Johnson involved his frequent insistence that he be accompanied by whoever he was meeting with to the bathroom whenever nature would call. In a very strange, very obvious power ploy, Johnson regularly required those he met with to stand close by him while he openly and without any attempt at discretion relieved himself in front of other people.
Okay, the only counter move there is cross the streams, right?
Well, at least we know Tom Hanks will play him in the movie. That's cool, right?
Or take a shit on his lap while he's shitting. That's a power move. I feel like he'd respect that.
Do it in the top, yeah, like you upper decker him while he's on the lower deck. That's
a double decker. Yeah. They call that a double decker.
Yeah.
So one favorite pastime of Johnson's was to drink beer and drive around his ranch. Naturally, the Secret Service had to tail him as he drove erratically and drunkenly about. On one notable occasion, the president stopped at the side of the road to take a piss. The guards, as they were required to do, they rushed to his side, and the wind promptly blew the stream of urine onto the nearby Secret Service agent, who complained that the president was now pissing on his leg. And Johnson just looked at the guard, still pissing on him, and said, "I know. That's my prerogative."
If it was Nixon, he would have told him it was raining.
And if it were Trump, Putin would have had video of it.
And that kind of game-playing power nonsense was just par for the course for Johnson. Remember how he said that he frequently took meetings into the bathroom? That gave Johnson an opportunity to show off his penis, which he seemed to love to do. He would frequently, in mid-conversation, turn away from the urinal with his dong hanging out, pointing himself at whoever he was talking to.
He'd stop midstream or
It's
not
not
stop?
clear whether he
No.
was still pissing at these
That
times
hurts
or
so
not.
much.
Doesn't hurt that much.
Stings.
See you, doctor.
You're weird. That stings. That should sting you, Tom.
Sting at all. Once, spinning around while talking to a lawmaker, his willy just waving in the breeze, Johnson pointed at his cock and said, "You ever seen anything this big?" before grabbing himself and casually spinning his dick around while continuing to discuss the legislation at hand.
Sure, I've seen something that big. The hole in JFK's head.
The holes in the Warren report. There's a lot of big. The other hole in JFK's head. There were so many.
And
To the left.
Thank you.
And Lyndon Johnson didn't just show off his dick like a much less funny Louis C.K. He also talked endlessly about it. The name he preferred when referring to his, by all accounts, prodigious dong was Jumbo, and he took every opportunity to brag about it. When working with a tailor, Johnson is on tape complaining that, quote, and there's tape of this,
Yeah, there is.
quote, "The crotch where the nuts hang, it's too tight. It's just like riding a wire fence. See, if you can't
What?
leave me an inch from where the zipper ends, round under my back to my bunghole so I can let it out there if I need to."
Yeah, can you put a silver ribbon in there so I can tie it to my ankle?
All right, dude, I can see your normal sized dick. My hand is cupping your normal sized dick. I'm pretty sure you're not going to need to tuck it up your butthole. I don't think that's not. There's no way that's necessary or
It's my
an
presidential
issue.
prerogative. I can tuck it up my butthole if I want to.
He seriously loved his penis. In the White House, Johnson was trying to get a shower installed, and he asked that the shower include jets aimed so that they would shoot right at his junk. When he was told that this would require too much plumbing to be feasible just so that he could get a direct spritz on his schlong, Johnson demanded that they do it anyway, saying, quote, "If I can move 10,000 troops in a day, you can certainly fix a bathroom any way I want it."
Yeah, don't get Tom started on the changes he wanted to make to the White House vacuum cleaners.
All right, what if we just make it so you can't move 10,000 troops a day? Because that's not going great.
On another occasion, when he was frustrated by reporters' difficult questions about the Vietnam War and why the U.S. was involved in it, Johnson, in a fit of that frustration, standing in front of reporters, pulled out Jumbo and waggled it at them, saying, "This is why." The encounter was agreed to be an off-the-record conversation, and so reporters did not immediately report it. It's just like weirdly honorable in an absolutely bonkers sort of a way.
Sorry, Tom. You're telling me Lyndon Johnson, the President of the United States, got his penis out in the middle of a press conference, and everyone agreed his penis was off the record. Thomas, what possible news did they think would be more important to report that day?
I have no idea. In 1964, Lyndon Johnson was campaigning and speaking to a reporter while aboard Air Force One, and evidently was hot and his shirt was chafing him, so the president took off his shirt. Then his pants were chafing him too, so off with those. Then, still talking to the reporter, the goddamn president of the United States, sitting on Air Force One, talking about a presidential campaign event, took off his underwear. And while he did have a towel, he did not use that towel as a drape. He chose instead to gesticulate about with it as he spoke.
What?
The whole thing with his dick was just such an obvious and clumsy power move. It's second only to trying to shake hands with someone like you just flipped your baseball hat back. So I guess what I'm saying with all this here is that despite all of our veneration of these guys, at the end of the day, they were all just men. Breakable, all too human men. And up until recently, I think we all kind of thought, well, yeah, that's the beauty of the American system. This nation isn't a nation governed by sovereigns, but a nation governed by people chosen from among the masses. And on President's Day, it's a nice time to remember that. to reflect on it and to laugh at ourselves for ever thinking that was a good idea.
Yeah. All right, so if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would it be, Tom?
This is a proud nation with a proud history, and I am not at all embarrassed. You're embarrassed.
And are you ready for the quiz?
Why else do you think I have my penis out?
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
had some theories.
Tom, what is the best name for a governmental penis? A, One-Eyed Willie of the People. B, the Royal Wiener. C, Banana Republican. Or D, Stephen Miller.
He looks so much like a penis.
It's tough.
Exactly like a human penis.
It does.
He does. He looks
Oh,
so
man, that is, well,
Not
obviously.
like a good one either, like a sad.
Yeah, a bad penis.
It's impossible to use the word best in conjunction with Stephen Miller in any way. So it's got to be Banana Republican.
It is. Congratulations.
All right, Tom. Lyndon's Johnson was just one of his odd power moves. Which of the following was his second favorite power move? A. He began every meeting by shotgunning a beer while making hard eye contact. B. Every Monday, he sent himself flowers from Jesus Christ of Nazareth. C. He'd often pretend to miss a handshake so he could put his fingers in your nose and spin you around the room. Or D.
That's a treasure right there. That's a good one.
Or D. He invaded Southeast Asia because that Catholic asshole said we shouldn't.
Oh, these are all so good. I don't know, man. If it's not pretending to miss a handshake so he can put his spin you around. Just the visual of that.
Such
is
a
the
great
answer.
visual. It's such a great visual.
Correct, yes.
Oh, so good.
All right, Tom, which of the following is not a true fact about former presidents? A. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams went to England together and stole a piece of William Shakespeare's chair.
I know that one's true.
B. The term okay got popularized during the campaign of Martin Van Buren, whose nickname was Old Kinderhook.
Okay.
C. William Henry Harrison's opposition tried to smear him as being a lazy guy who just sits in log cabins drinking hard cider, so he leaned into it and commissioned hard cider bottles shaped like a log cabin as part of his campaign. D. Abe Lincoln was a professional wrestler before becoming president. There's a few more of these. E. James Garfield could write in Latin with one hand and Greek with the other hand at the same time. He was that ambidextrous.
That sounds so useful.
How would he pull his dick out when he's writing with two hands? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
With his foot, man. That's how good he was.
He could write in English with his foot, take his dick out with his second foot. That's
There you
right.
go.
F. Herbert Hoover's son had two pet alligators that were allowed to run around in the White House.
What is
sometimes.
happening right now?
These are fun facts.
These are great. We should do a fun fact show.
These are, some of these are true fun facts. It's true. G. A museum in Philadelphia has a cancerous tumor from Grover Cleveland's upper mouth. Whoa. H. Calvin Coolidge would press all the alarm buttons in the Oval Office and then hide just to see which staff members would run in quickly to help them. Amazing. I. William McKinley always wore a red carnation on his lapel for good luck. During an appearance in 1901, he gave the flower to a little girl, and seconds later, he got shot in the fucking face. He died 8 days later.
Oh, no.
J. JFK was killed by George Bush Sr.
Okay.
Can't be Jay. That's everyone. That's fun. That's,
Well, the
everyone
question
knows
is,
that's
which is
true.
not a true fact?
Right. Yeah. Obviously, Abe Lincoln was not a professional wrestler.
He was a professional wrestler. I'll give you a second guess.
The alligators. Herbert Hoover's
It's
alligators.
K, all of the above. Those are all true. No, they're not.
Okay.
I got a lot of these from Mashable, so there's a good chance
So, yeah.
some of them
Not any of them are true.
aren't true.
All right. Well, for Cecil, Eli, Heath, and Tom, I'm Noah. Thanking you for hanging out with us today. We're going to be back next week, and by then, Cecil will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear us try to remember what our shows were about before Trump was president on cognitive dissonance, the Skating Game, the Scott Off Blues, the Skeptocrat, and to a lesser extent, D&D minus. He didn't come up that much there. Yeah. You can also learn how to cook, like Cecil on his YouTube channel, Season Liberally. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com.
And so I said, I'll be damned if an octoroon steps foot on my petunias. No.
Hilarious.
You are naughty, sir. You guys are the worst.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.